Let's see. All right, everyone. Good. Hi, good morning. Nice to see you. Okay. So I'm going to, we're going to begin today. We have a few participants, which is great. All right. Wasn't able, it's taken a while for me to get some people here, but now I do. So fantastic. All right, let's go to, okay, so today is the beginning of week 5. Week 5. Actually, let me share our list of our schedule, okay? If any of you recommend my class to other students you know, make sure you tell them, listen, be sure to download Byers' assignments and due date sheet because this is key to the class. I still have some students emailing me questions about things that are on the Blackboard website that do not pertain to this document. So make sure that you're only following this document. Now, the class is almost over. I mean, this is week 5. Here we are. We are right here. We've done all this, and we're entering into this week. Next week, I'm going to go over graded essay 2s and tips for writing essay 3. And then that's it. I mean, that's really the last lecture. Technically, I have to have a lecture for that week 7, but I mean, you're turning in your essays, so there's not going to be much that I'm really going to go over. Okay, this is the next to last essay. I'm sorry, next to last live lecture. Okay. This week you are turning in your essays, which are due on Wednesday. Or essay 2s due Wednesday. At the end of this PowerPoint, at the end of this lecture, those who are participating, if you have any questions about your essay 2, you can ask them, and I will be more than happy to answer and go over any additional information that one might need. And I'm going to be grading all of your poetry work this week and getting that done. I should get that done today or tomorrow before I start grading the essay 2s. Okay. Also real fast, also about essay 2 grades. Listen, some of you, I'll be grading, like sometimes I'll grade like 5 at a time. I'll grade 5 essays, and you might see your essay grade in the grade book, but it is not actually affecting your overall grade until I've graded every single one of them and converted it to the essay 2. Okay. So like some of you might see your grade, you might get like let's say a lower grade. Let's just say you get like a 60 and your grade is about stays the same when you first see the 60. Okay. Well, and then like a day or two later, once I finish everyone's grade and I have made one adjustment in the grade book to make it officially the essay 2 grade, your grade will drop because of that 60. And then sometimes people get upset because they're like, hey, 3 days ago, my grade was an 80, and now my grade is a 70, even though the essay grade has been in the grade book for 3 days. And so, and again, that's because as I'm grading them, those of you who are grade first, your grade will appear visually, but it's not actually impacting your grade until every single essay is graded. And then the grade book actually generates the effect, the impact on your overall grade. All right. So just know that, you won't, the impact of your essay grade will not be seen on your grade, overall grade, until I've sent out the email saying all essays have been graded. Okay. Same thing goes for some of you who may have had a 55 on essay 1, and then essay 2 dramatically improves to a 90. And then some of you will see the 90 in the grade book and know that your grade needs to go up because essay 1 grade will have to be converted to 90 also, and you're expecting that. Okay. Well, don't email me asking when this is going to happen until I've sent out an announcement saying all essays have been graded. All right. When that email goes out, that's when you should see the difference in your grade. All right. So there's a delay between when you first get your grade in the grade book to when I send out an email about all grades. Okay. Because every time I grade an essay, it immediately goes to the grade book, even though it's not really completed yet. Okay. It's a long explanation, but if you have any questions, email me. Okay. So this week, we're going to lessons. Everything we're doing is going to be in lesson 4, film analysis, weeks 5 through 7. Okay. I'm going to go over, I'm going to use a PowerPoint today. This PowerPoint can be accessed here. And in fact, I'm actually going to upload a PDF copy of this PowerPoint. So that way you don't actually have to use PowerPoint, the program, to view these notes. Okay. After the lecture, you'll be able to access, after I record this lecture, you'll be able to access a PDF copy of the PowerPoint notes. Okay. The things I'm going to go over today are here, which I will show you when we get there. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to transition to the PowerPoint. New share. There we go. Move. Okay. There we go. Okay. Oh, I have 3 chats. Hold on. Let's see here. Okay, Zine, you couldn't find the, yeah, apparently no one can find the feedback. I sent the directions, and in the other classes, people didn't seem to have a problem following the directions to locate the feedback. And then some people will send me these like kind of like emails or kind of attitude, like, you didn't leave me any feedback. And well, I did. And so then I'll download it and send it to them. But it's very time consuming to download the graded rubric for every student and personally send it to them, which is why it is accessible on Blackboard. So if someone wants to send me your login credentials, and trust me, that won't change anything, and allow me to log into Blackboard under your account, and then I can film the process of accessing the comments. Okay. Because my perspective when I log in as an instructor is not the same that y'all have. Okay. And I don't have an essay with comments on it for me to access. So I can't really do that. All right. Great. Great. Jana, that would be awesome. If you don't mind, you can email it to me. And then sometime today, I will log in as you, and I'm just going to film myself going through the steps and post it for people so that way they can see it. Thank you. All right. So today we're talking about essay 3, film analysis. But before we get into that, though, we're going to talk about actually today, which is Juneteenth. Okay. This is not necessarily a part of the class, but this is an important day in our history. So, and you are at an institution of higher education. So we should talk about this briefly for a moment in honor of it. Okay. So in case anybody who doesn't know what Juneteenth is, it's considered Freedom Day. It celebrates June 19th, 1865. Okay. In 1862, like December, Abraham Lincoln wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, which would go into effect in 1863 on January 1st, that freed slaves in the South, freed slaves in south of the Mason-Dixon line. And which, of course, no one in the South observed that until after the Civil War, when the South lost the war. And so then the 13th Amendment was established and created, which would abolish slavery. But many of the plantation owners did not want to enforce this. They didn't even want to tell their slaves about it. They hid it from their slaves. They ignored it. So then the American Army, which mostly comprised of former Union soldiers, were dispatched all throughout the South to go to each plantation and enforce the proclamation saying, hey, you can no longer hold these slaves. And they were going around to tell the slaves that they were no longer slaves, that they were in fact free, because the slave owners were not telling the Black people who were no longer slaves that they were in fact no longer slaves. And so the idea is that this took a long time to do. And so then finally on June 19th, 1865 was when the Union soldiers, the American soldiers, because there's no longer Confederacy, so there's no longer Union soldiers, it's just American soldiers, made it all the way down into Galveston. Oh, that says Galveston. It's Galveston Bay, Texas, and freed the last group of slaves, which weren't actually slaves. They were Black people who were just being held against their will, not knowing that they had actually been granted freedom. And so June 19th, this was to celebrate the last day in which people were falsely held as slaves in America. Okay. So Juneteenth, what it is and what it isn't. Okay. There are some things that we need to remember, and I think that are important to always to remind ourselves about our American history. Okay. So Juneteenth is the celebration of liberty from enslavement. That is absolutely true. Yes, we're celebrating finally the end of a 400-year system of oppression and enslavement of people who are human and just as human as anybody else on Earth. This is a great book, which I might talk about later, called The Disordered Cosmos, which is this is written by this one of the only 100 Black doctors of physics, scientists, and she writes about how, all humans are made of the same components, the same exact thing, right? Yet some had freedom and some did not. So this celebrates the liberty from enslavement. Now, this is not the celebration of liberty from racism. All right, some people want to say, oh, once slavery was ended, all was good. And that is not true. All right. So Juneteenth is not the end of racism. Juneteenth is the beginning of civil liberties granted to people of color. It's the beginning of when humans who have always been human were finally given liberties in this country. But this was not, Juneteenth does not celebrate the full membership of citizenship in America, because Black people still, at the time, it was very hard for them to own property. It was much harder for them to ever own property compared to white people. Black women couldn't vote. All right. They couldn't live in certain places. They did not have full membership as other white people did in America. Okay. So we need to make sure that we don't romanticize that idea. This is the beginning of the slow uphill battle for equality. I mean, the battle of enslavement ended, and then it began the very long battle for equality. And equality is different than liberty. Liberty says that, by law, you have this right. Equality is this idea that everyone around you sees you equally as human. And that was still far from happening in America. So Juneteenth was the beginning, but it's not the celebration of the end. One thing we should not do on Juneteenth is celebrate Abraham Lincoln or the Emancipation Proclamation, because that takes the celebration about Black people and puts it on this white guy who really didn't do anything. His Emancipation Proclamation only freed slaves in the Southern Confederacy. But at that time that he wrote it, the Confederate States of America were a separate country. They did not see themselves as Americans. Therefore, if the American president institutes a law to affect this other country, it has no validity. It would be like in 1790, the King of England issue a law for America. Well, we weren't part of it. We weren't part of England anymore. So the King of England has no say in what we do here. So Abraham Lincoln, his emancipation didn't free any slaves, really, because it didn't free any slaves in the North. It only freed slaves in the South. The South didn't consider themselves a part of that country. Abraham Lincoln was not their president. And so it was a political move that didn't actually do anything. Okay. The Emancipation Proclamation was used to punish the Southern states, not honor the equal lives of Black people. So we should not be praising that white president on Juneteenth. We should be focused on the ending of enslavement, the beginning of civil liberties, and what Black people were able to accomplish from this. Okay. If you want to do some good reading, these are books that I can personally recommend. Stamped from the Beginning is a fantastic book. It's the definitive history of the racist ideas in America. How the Word is Passed is by Clint Smith, which is a book about current locations and facilities here in America that had their roots in racism, but now they still currently exist. Hood Feminism is a book about how the feminist movement, while it did benefit women, it left behind much of women of color. Angela Davis this is her autobiography. This is about her long history of fighting for civil liberties. Allow Me to Retort. I'm reading currently Allow Me to Retort and The Disordered Cosmos, which are also very fascinating. Okay, so if you want to do some reading, these are great books that I highly recommend. I've either read them or I'm currently reading them. All right, so that's our Juneteenth discussion. It's important to acknowledge. It's important to talk about it. It impacts everyone here in this country, whether you are a person of color or you're not. Okay, it impacts your role or your history and moving forward and stuff. So, but now we're gonna move into essay 3. Okay, the final essay, the last essay that you will be writing for this class. Boo-hoo. So sad. So sad. All right. I gotta get rid of this screen. How can I get rid of this screen? Let's put it up here. And let me shrink it down here. Okay. There we go. All right. So, and you know, Jana and Azine, anytime you have questions, you let me know. All right. Task. You will choose a film to watch and analyze. All right. You are going to analyze a film and you're going to write an essay about it. This essay is analytical. It is not a summary. Don't retell the story. Assume your reader has seen it. Me, just assume I've seen the movie, the film. This is the same thing we've done with short stories and poetry. Normally, if you took this class during the summer, during the spring or fall, you've been reading a novel. Lucky for y'all, I'm letting you do a film because, again, I didn't feel like you had enough time to read a novel. Okay, so, but the same way in which you wrote about multiple short stories and multiple poetry, instead, now you're writing about one piece, which is the film, and that's it. Okay, so for some, this is easier because it's just one text you're writing about, the film. Okay, and you don't have to read the film; you're watching it. Your essay will be graded on the following: that it's a complete essay. You have introduction, you have body paragraphs, and you have a conclusion. You gotta make sure you have a works cited page with 3 secondary sources. 3 sources for this. And then the film. So you have the film, and then you have 3 secondary sources that you are either about the film or about the ideas that you want to write about. You gotta make sure you have proper Mla formatting. That's still a requirement. So we'll make sure that you have your last name and page numbers in the header position. Some people are manually typing their last name in the page numbers on the top of the page for each page, but there are signs of inconsistency when you do that, okay? So you need to actually make sure that you double click into the header and you insert those page numbers. Make sure you have proper heading, that your essay is double spaced, 3 full pages, about 1,200 words, and written in 12-point font and quotes from your 3 secondary sources. You are to discuss themes, symbolism, and characterization in the film. You can discuss all 3 of those or just a few of those, as long as your essay is 3 full pages and about 1,200 words. You can talk about what does the film have to say about specific topics, like marriage, or acts of violence, or racism, or feminism, or women's lives, or immigration, any of those things. What type of issues does the film address? Again, okay, what is it talking about? What messages does the text convey about the main characters? How is the main character affected by their situation? How does childhood affect the main character? How does violence affect the main character? How does poverty affect the main character? So, Azine, the sources. Remember, from I think lecture 1 or lecture 2, I talked about topical research, okay, and subject research. You can find analysis on the actual film, okay, or you do topics that relate to the film. So, for example, Cold Mountain is a film, and one theme of that film is about the trauma caused by war, okay, and so this main character goes to war, and he becomes traumatized through it, and he feels by the end of the film that he's changed, that he says, quote, "If I had any humanity in me, I shot it dead." Okay, and so you can do research about the negative impacts of war, all right, or the PTSD that's caused by war, and you find the research about PTSD, and then you apply that to the main character in the film. Okay, there's a movie that I'm going to suggest to you. It's called Midsummer, and it's a symbolic film about toxic masculinity. So, and the effects that gaslighting has on women. But it's a horror film. They don't talk about toxic masculinity. They don't talk about gaslighting, but all those things are in the film. So you can do research on what is toxic masculinity, what is gaslighting, and talk about how that's evident in the film. Okay? Your research does not have to be about the film. It should help support your analysis and interpretation of the film. Okay, you can talk about how the main character grows or changes throughout the story. Okay, you can talk about the symbolic meaning of the ending, why the character, why this character had to die. It's important that the character died, because if the character had lived, blah, 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 all this other stuff that's not apparent would have happened. Okay, the point of your analysis is to talk about what's not obvious. Okay. All right, so here are some films, great films, that are worth analyzing. So if you're like, I don't know, I don't know, like, don't do Finding Nemo, do something better, deeper, okay? Even though I am going to talk about Moana today, all right, but still. One film is called Higher Learning, and most of these films are like from the 90s and 2000s, okay? Higher Learning, great film. It deals with kids in college. It's by John Singleton, who did Boys in the Hood and Poetic Justice. This deals with all types of issues like identity, sexuality, race, racism, anger, all sorts of very fascinating. And still, even though this is came out 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago, almost 30. Oh my God, almost 30 years ago. It's still very relevant. Oh, and there's a little picture of it. Ice Cube's in it. Oh man, it's great. A Marriage Story. That movie just came out relatively recently. Okay, and it's a great film. I mean, it's depressing AF, but it's good, and it really talks about the effects of divorce and the complexities of divorce, and about just relationships, and how, you know, there can still be love in a relationship, yet it still ends. Okay, and so that's a real deep movie with a lot of themes in it. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Oh, this is great. This movie is very abstract. It's very, there's a word I'm looking for. Not symbolic. Surreal. It's very surreal. And this deals with Freudian theories of the consciousness or unconsciousness, like the ego, the superego, and the id. You could research Freud's theories of consciousness and then do an analysis, what we would call a Freudian analysis of the film. The Big Sick. This deals with like multiculturalism, the blending of families, immigrant families in America, and it also deals with love and relationships. Midsummer. This is a great film. It's a horror flick. It's what you might almost consider to be a feminist slasher film. Okay. And its overall themes are the horrific effects of toxic masculinity. But it's fantastic. It's a really good. It's not a family movie. It's not a Friday night pizza movie night film, you know, but it's good. The Object of My Affection. This is I love this movie. It has Paul Rudd and Jennifer Aniston in it. It's from the 90s. Paul Rudd is gay, and he moves in with Jennifer Aniston because he needs a place to live, and it's about the complexities of their relationship and their identity, and it's great. It's really good. So gender and sexual relations would be a good topic to write about for that. This is a documentary called Transformer. It's about about this woman named Janae, who was previously a man, and she was a very famous powerlifter and bodybuilder, and it's a story of her transition, and it really dives deep into the emotional struggles that she has in fully transitioning. The film begins when Janae is still a man, and it tells his story and her story, both going through this process, and it shows the real, you know, the idea that like transitioning and being transgender is not a choice. It's very much present in a person from childhood, and so it's real. Even though it's a documentary, it's a narrative more. It tells her story, and it's great. So that's another good suggestion. So these are all things that you could watch. You don't have to watch any of these. I'm just suggesting some of these, all right, in case you're like, I don't know what to write about. Okay. All right. So let's talk about Moana. I'm going to give you I'm essentially going to demonstrate for you what you're going to be doing for your film. Okay. All right. Now, Jana, just so you know, like, I'm going to go into some deep things about this film. And I don't know if you'd be comfortable with what I talk about necessarily with your kids around. Just so you know. All right, so Moana analysis. All right, so first, let's look at sort of the shift in Disney princesses, okay? So we have, oh, you have your AirPods on. Great. Okay, well, now I'm gonna start cursing. I've been holding back, but hell yeah, this is freaking fantastic. No. So we have like Brave and Frozen, all right? And so these were first the major shifts in Disney princesses from your traditional group of Disney princesses, where we have like Snow White, Cinderella, Aurora, and Belle, and all these other ultra feminine princesses who all deal with trying to find love and getting men to notice them. Ariel, who gives her voice away for her prince, okay? And so everything's about their male partners and love, all right? So then we have this shift in Disney where we move to Brave, like Frozen, where we have Merida, who speaks to more of the tomboy girls, okay? And then with Frozen, where we have the attack on traditional love at first sight, all right? Where Elsa is sort of the voice of reason to Anna, who fits into more of that traditional fairy tale princess mold. Okay, it's almost a meta film. Frozen is, because you have the voice of the critic criticizing all these past princesses, but it's in the film itself. And both films, though, challenge the idea that romantic love is the most important thing in a woman's life. Okay. Both films stress the importance of familial bonds. All right. So, like, but there were also some problems with them. One, Brave was sort of the antithesis of femininity, and it kind of supported that old school feminist idea that, like, if you were going to be a feminist, you had to be kind of butch. Okay. So while Merida spoke to a lot of girls who were not traditionally what you would consider to be typical princess type girls, right? It also alienated some girls who were like, well, you know, I want to be more empowered, but I don't necessarily, but I also want to comb my hair, you know, which is a understandable thought. So then we have Frozen, which also is empowering. But then both these films have problems where a lot of their conflict is with other females, other women. Brave is in conflict with her mother. Elsa and Anna are in conflict with each other through most of the film itself. Okay. So then we have it continue, and Disney is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Insecure. They care about their image. And when people start criticizing them, they listen. They don't, you know, I'll give this to Disney. They don't try to, they don't buckle down, all right, and put their heels in the sand and defend themselves. They go, okay, I hear what you're saying. We're gonna try to evolve. So here we have Moana, okay? Because also, you know, the problem is that Brave and Frozen follow the traditional Caucasian history of female princesses, okay? And so then we have Moana. And so her story represents universal sisterhood. How so, you might ask? Well, let's get into it, okay? So what I just provided to you would be something like an introduction. This would be like an introduction, all right? Talking about the history of Disney princesses and how we evolved from this broad idea of princesses and moving it down to a more narrow, specific focus on Moana, okay? And so you could do something also where it provides some cinematic history. Jana, yes, ask a question.
Okay, I really struggle with finding symbolism or anything. I'm a very literal person. So I didn't know if you have any advice as for watching these things. I'm a little late in asking because I've struggled through every analysis so far, but what you make your brain do to try and make things kind of stand out to you or come alive to you. I did figure out I think when we were analyzing the poems that I went to YouTube and listened to like spoken word, it helped me to kind of make things jump out. But I just have a hard time finding symbolism in things and not just taking them at face value of what is actually being said. And I don't know how to train my brain to do otherwise. Do you have any advice?
So like my advice is to, because when I watch things or read things, I don't immediately get it. I don't immediately get like, but what I do is I ask myself, literally, what else is happening under the surface here? What could this be? And so then I try to isolate specific characters or incidents, because know this, every single thing that like in a film and every single thing in a book and a poem that you read is on purpose. It's all on purpose. And for a film, okay, we'll just use that, which is the same thing as a novel, okay, is that the purpose of a scene or an action that takes place, all right, it either has plot-based importance, okay, like it is, you need this scene to push the plot forward, okay, or it's used to provide character analysis. This scene, while you could take this scene out of the film and the plot still happens, all right, this scene then must be related to something dealing with the character. Does it reveal something about the character? Does it show a complexity? If it does, what does it show about this character? Or this scene could deal with, if it doesn't necessarily seem like it's related to a character necessarily, then maybe the scene has to deal with meaning, theme. How does this scene that we're witnessing here, what is the moral from this scene, or what idea is this scene setting up? Films are so expensive that every single unnecessary scene gets cut out. And a director has to fight to justify every single part of a film. So if you're seeing it, it must be meant for something. And so you need to, often what I do is I ask myself, again, what does it have to do with the film? Does it support the plot? Okay. And if it's with the plot, then it doesn't have much meaning. If it's just plot related, then that means it's not really symbolic because it's not really dealing with the theme. Symbolism, to try to figure out if something's a symbol, it deals with theme. Or character development, and like, what is the nature of this? I also think about the dialogue, okay, because dialogue, you take dialogue, and when you look at a theme of a story, a theme is applied to outside of the story. Okay, so like it's a statement that like it's not just for the film or the book. It's something that makes a statement about people in life. And so then I listen to the dialogue, and when people say certain things, okay, I might reflect on that and say, can I see that evident in the world? Does that make a statement about other people in other communities? And then I might, take that and harbor on it and try to say, okay, well, if this statement is being made in this film, like literally a character says this, okay, how might that apply to the real world? And so you could take that line of dialogue out and then do some research on, like, what does this say about people? Like, in the Marriage Story, that film, there is a line where the female actress says that her husband stole her best years because she was an actress and he was a director, and she married him and essentially put her acting career almost on hold to help him pursue his directing career. So then my thought would be, okay, she in her story, she feels like she sacrificed her career for her husband. Do a lot of women feel that way when they get divorced? And then I might do some research and say, many times do women feel that they, or at least does at least one partner feel that they have build resentment towards their partner for feeling as if like they put their life on pause? And then if the research says, if I find research that says, yes, this is true, then I might write about that in my analysis. Does that make sense? So, it's easy to get into reading something for entertainment value, but we have to make the conscientious effort to be critical in everything we're seeing and try to see, is this a message? Is this, are they trying to convince me of something? Is this a symbol? Is this, so if you watch it with questions, constantly questioning it, then that might open the doors to interpretation. And you might not, like I said, you might not get it right away, but you can say, I think there is something here. And you can take that to Google and try to find some reassurance, to try to find some affirmation that yes, this seems to be important.
I think too, when you give us the thought-provoking questions to kind of ask ourselves as we're reading or listening or whatever to something, I then want to like repeat that question in my analysis. Like, I don't know, it just feels so I don't know, not, it doesn't flow or
Yeah.
whatever. It doesn't feel organic. It just feels like on my, and then I realized after I poured my heart and soul and hours into this last essay, I read it and I was like, I think, did I even just analyze these poems, or did I just like pull out stuff and then start identifying it to my own life and talking about myself instead of the poem? I ended it feeling so like, oh my gosh, what did I just do?
That's okay. Because listen, you can't analyze something if you have not experienced it in a way through either reading about it or living through it. You know, like the analysis that I'm about to provide for Moana has come from just as we'll get into it, you'll see that like this is about sexual abuse. And like my sister is a therapist that deals with sexual abuse. So like I'd spent many years talking to her and she just telling me about her clients. I've read books about this stuff. So like when I was watching it, it came to me because I had prior knowledge of this. And there are things that my wife and I will watch a film and she'll have a completely different interpretation from it because it's the way that she sees it. And she uses her prior knowledge or her experience as a woman to say one thing, you know, like I might think this guy in this film is like a nice guy. And then she may be like, no, that guy's a total asshole. And then she explains to me, you know, her reading of this guy because of her experience with guys like him. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's a dick. I didn't realize, yeah, you're right. I thought he was a nice guy, but no. Okay. And so, you know, you have to come from a place of your own experience, whether that's your experience living it or your experience reading about it or being educated about it or having family members who've gone through similar things, you know? So that's, and like with your essay, when you read about, you know, your children, like, yeah, of course, those poems spoke to you because you're living that. That speaks to you because you can relate to it, which is what's really important, you know? And so like, I think, and like for me, like, I think like some of us connect more with things that we personally relate to, and then others of us relate to things that we don't relate to. Like me being a white, cisgender male, straight guy, right? Like I relate, I am drawn to all these other stories and narratives of things that I've never experienced. So I'm drawn to stories written by and about women. I'm drawn to stories written by and about Black people, people of color. I'm drawn to stories written by gay people, people that are just outside of my experience, you know? So you can go either way, all right? You can go with things that you relate to personally, you know? So it's all about whatever grabs your attention. Okay. So like for you, you know, like you might have to watch more than one film. You might watch a film and you're like, I don't get shit from that. Like I have no idea, you know, but then you find a film that kind of speaks to you as a person and you're like, okay, I totally understand why this character is feeling this way because I would feel that way too. All right. So, you know,
I feel better.
Good. Okay. So good question. So we have Moana here, and it's about universal sisterhood. So we start breaking down some of the symbols, okay? Tafiti. Tafiti is the mother goddess island who gives birth to other islands. I mean, in all cultures, the earth is always personified as a feminine spirit. It's a female spirit. Ireland is named after Erin, the earth goddess of their island. I mean, of their island. And so, and then we have, you know, the idea of Mother Earth. And so here we have Tafiti, who is the mother goddess island. And so she represents women in the feminine spirits. So then we have this guy, okay? This guy who at first is presented as a villain. I mean, this light, he's called a Trickster Maui, all right? He is a trickster, he's a deceiver. And this light is not a complimentary light. This is not cast a positive look on him. This right here looks like dark and evil. And so he's a demigod male who enters deep into the island of Tafiti to steal her power. All right, with his hook. And so this hook here, okay, this hook is, if you study any type about archetypes and symbolism throughout history, you learn that hooks are phallic symbols, okay? A phallic symbol represents a penis, all right? And so swords are phallic symbols, stabbing, daggers are phallic symbols. Most violent weaponry are phallic symbols that represent masculinity and sexual and male sexuality. If you read Lord of the Flies, Jack, who is a super insecure male, he always has his knife, okay, and he proves himself with his knife, and that represents his sexuality, his manliness. While Jack, I'm sorry, that's Jack. No, Ralph, Jack has his knife, and he has to prove himself. He's insecure. Ralph does not need a knife or anything to prove his masculinity or who he is. He has his mind. He's very secure. And so here we have Maui. His hook is a phallic symbol. And so he uses that hook to go deep into Tafiti, all right, into her center where her heart is, or where her core is, her values are, and steals from her, all right, her inner being. So this scene symbolizes misogyny. It represents male dominance and the patriarchy in all forms, whether it's in the home, religion, workplace, inequality, sexual abuse, rape, sexual misconduct, and everywhere else where men use their gender to have power and privilege over women, okay, in her deepest, darkest place. So then we have the introduction of this character, Tafiti, which we don't realize, I'm sorry, of Taka, which we don't know is Tafiti. We don't know that Taka is the same person in who Maui just abused, okay? And so we are introduced to Taka, who's a powerful demon, attacks Maui, okay? We don't realize Taka is Tafiti. And so this will come to represent the rage and trauma that overcomes women who experience all the forms of misogynistic oppression, whether that is sexual abuse, that is just less pay, the rage that comes from doing the same work but not for equal pay, whether that's the rage that comes from unequal familial expectations about women who feel like they have to carry more in the household, even though they also have a full-time job, just like their male counterparts. This can be just a degradation in the church, this idea of being told that women are not equal to men in the eyes of their creator. This all creates forms of rage. Maybe it's just mansplaining itself, or it's this idea that women get overlooked in meetings, or just in society itself, or that what they have to say is seen as less valuable to what the male, their male counterparts say. So Taka represents that, all right? This rage and trauma that overcomes these women who have been dealt these situations. And what happens? Okay, well, a darkness starts to spread across the ocean to other islands, killing all the fish and corrupting the crops. Okay, her rage starts to destroy life itself. And so this represents literally misogyny. Misogyny is literally a stain on society and existence. Just like how last week we watched This Is America. We looked at This Is America video and the music video, and we said how the Childish Gambino, his portrayal of Jim Crow is the manifestation of racism. And in that video, Gambino goes about and he is either committing or in the presence of chaos and violence, and that represented the violence and chaos that structural racism has on America. Okay, that racism was causing all of these the riots and the violence and the destruction. So here in Moana, okay, this darkness that's spreading over and killing everything, this is misogyny. Okay, it's a stain on society. So then we have Moana, all right, and she represents female empowerment. And the conch right here, okay, is a what you call a yoni symbol, right? And that represents femininity and women and female sexuality. And she is guided into the ocean by the conches, by her femininity. Okay, yoni literally is Sanskrit for womb. It represents womb. And the ocean itself is personified as female in literature. It's always, the ocean's always been female, which is what's really interesting also, is that the earth in all cultures is personified as female, and the ocean in all cultures is personified as female as well. And humans, we'll say, we evolved out of the ocean into land, and land into humans and stuff. And so really, I mean, our parents are just female lesbians. The ocean and the earth, both female, created us and who we are. Okay, which some say is what Freud would say, that a lot of people who study the subconscious will say, well, that's what comes up. That's what motivates male rage and male sense of dominance, is knowing that we owe ourselves to the existence of women, and that we seek to try to get back dominance here on Earth. All right, so all of this represents the unique ways women have to fight for respect for themselves, and how they comfort and bond with other women. The ocean comes and takes care of Moana, guides her, leads her, gives her the heart of Te Fiti to protect, sends her on this journey to then go and to repair the terrible work that Moana did to Te Fiti. All right, so now we have Moana through her female, we have the ending, okay? And in the ending here, we have Moana is confronting Te Kā, and she's trying to back channel around Te Kā the whole time to get to Te Fiti. And then she has this moment where she realizes that Te Kā is Te Fiti. And instead of trying to fight her or go around her, she calls her to her. And in a very beautiful song, she, instead of attacking Te Kā or criminalizing her or condoning her, or condemning her, she says to her, "They have stolen the heart from inside you, but this does not define you. This is not who you are. You know who you are." She relates to Te Kā, okay? And this calms Te Kā because Te Kā feels seen. She helps her to realize that she's not a villain, all right, that she's a victim, and that she understands her story. And so then Te Kā lets Moana place her heart back in her, which represents women supporting women, not condemning each other or attacking each other or putting each other down in hopes of trying to rise up to step on top of them. And Te Fiti wakes up. She wakes up and she breaks out of her shell. Okay, and this is recovery. This is women helping women recover from their trauma, supporting each other through the shared experiences that they face. And now, again, this is not anti-male. This is not, look, he did something bad to her, okay? All right, but also at the same time, though, he comes back and he acknowledges their bullshit and tries to change their behavior, okay? He apologizes, he admits what he did, and Te Fiti does the bigger thing. She forgives him and offers him a new hook, all right, since his old hook was destroyed. And this is saying, look, you used to use your sexuality as a weapon against us, okay? You used it to abuse us, to take advantage of us, to overpower us, to step on top of us, okay? And this is, in a sense, a new hook saying, don't do that this time. You have a new way of being. You have a new way of living on this earth equally, acknowledging all the crappy things you did and now changing. And so men need to not use their sex or gender to oppress, ignore, control, or cause harm to women, or both physically, emotionally, socially, financially, spiritually, etc. All those things. So, this film, and then, all is right in the world again. Yay. If guys can do this and women can do this with each other, all right, we can get over all of it and things can be all good. Okay. So that's what we'd say would be like an analysis of Moana, this symbolic nature of the film and the bigger story in which it tells. And that's what you're going to do in your essay. You're going to do something very similar. You're going to watch a film and you're going to write about its underlying messages. Or you can take its apparent obvious messages and just support it. So like, again, Cold Mountain, an obvious message is that war and PTSD totally corrupts, it can corrupt soldiers. It can make them feel like they have lost who they are inside of themselves. That is an apparent, very literal interpretation of that film. So you can you can take an obvious idea in this film and then find actual research by doctors and writers that supports this and write about it. Okay. So Jana, like, to go back to you again, you don't have to look for a hidden meaning. It can be obvious, but the film that you're watching is a story, and you just find nonfiction informational texts to support what the film says. We are wrapping up. Okay. So what you are going to do, awesome. Yeah. All right. Let me show y'all this week's work, and then we will wrap up. Okay. So lesson 4. We're in, yep, there we go. Okay. We're in unit 4. Okay. Now I want you this week to watch the film Candyman, the 1992 film. Okay. Again, it's not required. You don't have to. There's no way I would know. Okay. But by watching it, after you watch it, I wanted you to listen to this Candyman analysis. If you click here, this is a link that will send you here where you can listen to this. You can also download, if you have an app, if you have a phone, a smartphone, you can download this podcast. The podcast group is called Girls, Guts, and Giallo. And the episode is the Candyman episode, where the host does a very deep analysis on Candyman. And this is fitting for Juneteenth because this film is a horror film that deals with racism. Okay. It's a lot, it's kind of like Get Out, that film also, which is a horror film that deals with racism. But the analysis that the podcast does is fantastic. And so, like, really what I want you to do is I really want you to listen to the podcast, but you need to watch the movie in order to understand the podcast. So you hear what she's doing, about how she's talking about the history of racism, the history of this story, and the current effects of racism on people, and all this that's twined together. Okay. But again, do not listen to this analysis at work unless you have headphones on. All right. Don't listen to around other people unless you have headphones on, because the host she uses explicit language. All right. And it's graphic. And so, and if that's totally against your moral code, again, it's not required. There's no test on this. It's just a really good example of what I'm wanting you to do in your paper, an in-depth analysis of a film. Okay. All right. So, I listened to it when I was on a jog. You can do the same. Okay. All right. So that's this week. You're finishing your essay 3. You're finding a link to Candyman. If you click here, it sends you to a website where it offers different ways that you can watch Candyman. You can rent it digitally for $4. And then you can go to the Candyman link to listen to the analysis of it. And then you are finding a film to watch that you feel confident that you can write about. Okay. All right. Are there any questions? So Azine, you would have, I cannot find a free streaming copy of Candyman. So you would have to rent it. I mean, you can just listen to the analysis, but it won't make much sense if you don't watch it. Personally, you get more out of it if you find a way to watch it. Okay, it's like $4. If you absolutely can't, then you can watch some clips on YouTube, and get the general gist of the film, and then listen to it. Listen to the free podcast. Okay, so yeah, that's my best suggestion for you. Okay, again, you don't have to, I'm not requiring you to watch it because I can't, and there's no test on it. Okay. All right, cool. Jana, do you have any questions? All right, great. All right, y'all. Well, I'm done. I'm being bitten up by mosquitoes, so time to go. I hope y'all enjoyed this. If you have any questions, email me. I'll be grading essay 2s this week. And don't email me any questions about your grade until I've sent an email out saying grades are finalized for essay 2.
Sir, the assignment which is due on 27th of this month. So this is the Find and Watch Candyman 1992 and listen to the Girl Gerd Galadio podcast in the lives of this. So is this any kind of the assignment to written down, or it just
no, there's no grade for it. I would like for you to do it.
So it's not have any grades, right?
The reason why I say that is due 6/27 is because I will be discussing Candyman next week. I'll be discussing kind of like what they talked about in the podcast. So it'll make much more sense to you if you had watched it. That's all.
No. So that's what I'm asking. The essay depends on this one, or it's just a different thing on the essay?
Essay 3?
Yeah, essay 3.
Essay 3 is on any film that you want to watch.
So above
is
1, 2, and
essay 3 is not about Candyman.
It's not about the Candyman, not even about the listen to the Girls Guard Galileo podcast and that, right? So far, we don't have any assignment to written down on the paper, like the words, like essay and the analyze, right?
You don't have anything else due until essay 3 is due.
Except the essay 3, like in the past we did the If We Must Die assignment, Let America Be America assignment. So it's not like that thing, right?
Right. No, it's not.
All right. So actually I'm traveling. I'm going for the traveling. So the Monday 27 will be the day when I arrive to the place. So that's why I'm just asking, and I'm just leaving here from here on Saturday. So that's why I'm just making sure. So I have to wrap up the things before that, and I have like 1 or 2 days. So that's why I'm just asking with you.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Very good. And the only thing I have to write, and which is due on 6th July, is essay 3, and that would be the last assignment, right?
Yes.
All right, got you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. All right, y'all. Have a good Monday. Happy Juneteenth. Bye.
And have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.